Hey everyone, Power Stars here with another episode of Why It Failed. Today, by request of FluffyFingas from Reddit, we're looking at Sega's Dreamcast. Let's start off with a little history. After the massive success of the Sega Genesis, Sega released their follow-up console, the Saturn, in 1994, or 1995 for you filthy Americans. It didn't go over very well, to say the least. Basically, it was more expensive, $100 more expensive to be precise, than the PlayStation, and it was harder to develop for. Couple this with one of the worst console launches of all time, at least in America, where it was released before the thing was even announced, and you have a console that was doomed from the start. In 1997, then CEO of Sega of America, Bernie Stolar, even said that the Saturn was not their future. So, only a few years after the Saturn's launch, Sega began work on their next home console. With that, let's start talking about some of the ideas behind the Dreamcast. As I mentioned, the Dreamcast was Sega's console to follow up upon the Saturn. Because of the Saturn's commercial failure, they immediately looked to fix some of the problems it had. The Dreamcast was designed with similar hardware to a PC, which made it easier to develop for. Sega also had Microsoft develop a special version of Windows CE for the console that would make it easier to port over existing PC games to the Dreamcast. It also had a heavy focus on the online gaming aspect. Every console was packaged with a modem, which was unheard of at the time. For the actual discs, Sega developed a new format known as GD-ROM. It could be produced for a small cost, similar to the CD-ROM format, but it held more data, so that less money had to be spent on the costly DVD-ROM format. Overall, the concept looks fine. It's an innovative console that was easy to develop for, with some intelligent decisions made for cutting costs. Now let's look at how they executed it. First of all, the console was the most advanced on the market at the time of its release, until a year later when the PS2 came and matched its processing power. The online capabilities of the Dreamcast were also a big selling point. They offered some of the best online gaming seen up to that point. So, overall, it was executed pretty well. Except for one major flaw. The use of GD-ROMs meant that technically people could burn games onto CD-ROMs and play them on their Dreamcast, though some features had to be removed due to the larger file size of the GD-ROMs. Nonetheless, many people still pirated games in this fashion. Still, aside from that problem, the execution was still handled pretty well. So now that we're done with that, let's talk about the PlayStation 2. I mean the competition for the Dreamcast. As I just implied with my last statement, the biggest competitor for the Dreamcast was Sony's PlayStation 2. It came out only a year after the Dreamcast launched, and basically stole its thunder, kinda killing the positive momentum it was building up to that point. It boasted online capabilities that could match that of the Dreamcast, as well as the use of the DVD-ROM format for games, meaning they could hold more data. It also came with one non-gaming feature that was a huge selling point: a DVD player. The consoles came out around the time when DVDs began to be the default format for playing movies, and the PS2 could play them out of the box. This was a big selling point at the time for people who didn't own DVD players already. Couple this with the fact that Sega had lost a lot of money due to the Saturn's failure, meaning they couldn't afford to keep competing with Sony, and the Dreamcast was pretty much doomed since the PS2's launch. Nintendo's GameCube and Microsoft's entry into the console market with the Xbox in 2001 were pretty much the nails in the coffin. So the competition was a huge blow to the Dreamcast's potential success. But did the promotion also play a factor? No, it did not. Sorry to give you the answer right off the bat, but the promotional campaign for this thing was solid. The launch was good in both the US and Japan, and Sega basically put ads wherever they could. They even partnered with MTV to sponsor the Video Music Awards 2 years in a row. And during the second year, they specifically tried to push SegaNet, the Dreamcast's online service. And it's not even like the promotional campaign was bad or anything. Not at all. The slogan of the console was the effective "It's Thinking," in reference to how advanced the console was at the time. And the actual ads were great too. The US got some really cool commercials featuring characters from a multitude of Dreamcast games interacting with each other. And Japan got something. So yeah, the promotional campaign was actually above average. It was great. So how much did the console cost? Well, the launch price was $199. To put that into perspective, the GameCube launched for the same amount, and the PS2 and Xbox launched for $100 more. So even the price was good, and Sega kept dropping it later in an attempt to make the console sell better. Alright, let's wrap this up. The Dreamcast had a lot going for it. It was revolutionary at the time with its online capabilities, and it came at a great price. I think it's pretty obvious what killed it, and that would be the PlayStation 2. As I mentioned, the Dreamcast launched really well, but as soon as the PS2 came along and was able to match or even surpass it in every aspect, Sega couldn't afford to continue competing. So, in conclusion, the reason for the Dreamcast failure laid almost entirely in competition, as well as Sega's limited budget. Well, this has been Why It Failed. Please be sure to let me know if you enjoyed this video, and if you have any ideas for future episodes, I'd love to hear them. Power Stars, out. Peace, YouTube.